Hey, ever thought about what you'd feed your favorite houseplant if you ran out of actual plant food? I once jokingly wondered if they'd go for, like, a slice of pizza.
Huh. Probably not the best idea.
It sounds ridiculous, right? But it actually gets you thinking. Just like we need specific stuff in our diets for energy and growth, plants have their own non-negotiables.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what we're digging into today. Plant nutrition, how these silent green organisms get everything they need to thrive.
Yeah, totally. And it isn't just about watering and sunshine, you know.
Right.
We're going on a bit of a treasure hunt through information from some cool sources. We've got YouTube video transcripts that explain basic plant nutrition and photosynthesis, kind of aimed at 7th graders,
Okay.
and some CBSE science notes for class 7, plus NCERT solutions for their science chapter 1. So, pretty focused stuff.
So think of this as your backstage pass to understanding how plants fuel their amazing lives. Our mission, to uncover the essential secrets of plant nutrition without getting, like, totally tangled up in complicated jargon.
Yeah, keep it simple.
We're aiming for those light bulb moments, the aha that make you see the plant world in a whole new light.
And we'll do that by focusing on the core ideas, using analogies to help them stick, and connecting it to things you already encounter every day. Should be fun.
All right, so let's talk about the plants shopping list. They're not heading to the grocery store, obviously. So where do they get all the vital stuff they need to build themselves up?
Well, plants are pretty resourceful, actually. They pull essential mineral elements, or what we can think of as their basic nutrients, from like 3 main places.
Mm-hmm.
The water they absorb, the air around them, and the soil they're rooted in.
Okay. Water, air, soil, the basics.
Those are the fundamental ingredients for all their growth and development, yeah.
And it's not just a general gulp of water or air, is it? There are specific nutrients they're after, right? Like how we need iron or vitamin C.
Precisely, yeah. There's a range of essential mineral nutrients that are absolutely vital for plant health. Think of elements like potassium, which helps with water regulation inside the plant, calcium, crucial for building strong cell walls, and sulfur, which plays a role in protein production. It's, a carefully balanced menu they need.
Right, a whole list. And the main way they get these goodies from the soil is through their roots, those underground networks we often don't see.
Exactly. The roots are key. And if you look closely at the tips of roots, you'll often see tiny little root hairs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, these are like extensions that massively increase the surface area of the root, making it way more efficient for the plant to soak up those dissolved mineral nutrients from the soil water. It's like having a super sponge instead of just a regular one.
Ah, so these roots are like super absorbent straws sucking up all the good stuff from the soil. Now, what about those bags of fertilizer you see at garden stores? What's the deal with those?
Ah, yeah, fertilizer. That's where we sometimes step in to give nature a bit of a boost.
Right.
Fertilizers are added to the soil because they contain essential elements that plants need in relatively large amounts, especially when they're growing rapidly or, producing fruits and seeds.
Okay.
The big 3 you'll always see on fertilizer labels are nitrogen, N, phosphorus, P, and potassium, K, that famous NPK.
NPK, right. Heard of that.
Nitrogen is key for leafy growth, phosphorus for root and flower development, and potassium for overall plant health.
Ah, NPK, the power trio of plant nutrition. So it's like giving the soil an extra shot of the most important plant vitamins.
Pretty much.
Now, I remember reading that plants don't just absorb these minerals as solid bits of matter, do they?
That's right. Good point. They absorb them as ions dissolved in the soil water. Think of it like salt dissolving in water. It breaks down into charged particles.
Ions, okay.
These charged particles, or ions, are much easier for the plant's roots to take up and transport.
Now, that might sound a bit science-y, but I also came across something called soil pH. What exactly is that, and how does it affect whether plants can actually grab these nutrients?
Oh, that's a really insightful question. Soil pH is basically a measure of how acidic or alkaline the soil is.
Right.
Kind of like a lemon juice to baking soda scale, but for soil. And it has a surprisingly big impact on whether those essential mineral ions can actually dissolve properly in the water and be available for the plant to absorb.
So it affects availability.
Totally.
Yeah.
If the pH is too high or too low, some nutrients can get locked up in chemical forms that the plant can't easily take in, even if they're present in the soil.
So it's like the plant is trying to access a buffet, but depending on the soil's pH, some of the dishes are behind a locked door.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
Mm.
And just like you need a balanced diet with different vitamins and minerals to have energy for school, sports, and all your activities,
Yeah.
plants also rely on having the right balance of these soil nutrients to grow strong and carry out all their life processes.
Okay, so plants get their foundational nutrients from the soil, air, and water, all thanks to their amazing roots. But that's just the start, isn't it? Because they have this incredible superpower, making their own food. Let's talk photosynthesis.
Absolutely. This brings us to the amazing world of autotrophic nutrition. Auto means self, and trophic relates to feeding. So autotrophs are organisms that have the ability to produce their own food.
Self-feeders.
Exactly. And green plants are the ultimate autotrophs.
They're like tiny, self-sustaining food factories powered by the sun. So how does this incredible process of photosynthesis actually work its magic?
Well, green plants use a recipe with a few key ingredients: carbon dioxide from the air,
Okay.
water absorbed from the soil, sunlight, and chlorophyll, that green pigment you see in their leaves.
Right, the green stuff.
They take these simple ingredients and, through a series of fascinating chemical reactions, create their own food in the form of glucose, which is a type of sugar.
Glucose. Okay, let's break down these ingredients one by one. Carbon dioxide, where does the plant get that from?
Think of carbon dioxide as the plant's main source of carbon, kind of like the main building block for their food, like the flour in bread.
Oh, okay. Flour. I like that.
They take it in from the air through tiny pores on their leaves called stomata.
Stomata.
Yeah, imagine the leaf surface covered in millions of these microscopic doorways. And these stomata aren't just open all the time. They're surrounded by special guard cells that can open and close the pores to regulate gas exchange.
Wow. Okay. So stomata are like the plant's way of breathing in the carbon dioxide it needs. What about the water?
Water is another essential ingredient, like the liquid that mixes everything together,
Yeah.
like the water in bread, keeping with that analogy.
Gotcha.
It's absorbed by the roots from the soil and then travels up to the leaves through a network of tiny tubes, kind of like the plumbing system in a building. These are called vessels.
Got it. Roots suck up the water, and these little pipes, vessels, deliver it to the leaf kitchen. Now, for the energy source, sunlight.
Right. Sunlight is the energy that powers the entire photosynthetic process. It's like the oven baking the bread.
The oven.
Okay. And the chlorophyll in the leaves acts like the chef's special tool that can capture this light energy. Or maybe like the baker who knows how to use the oven.
Huh, I like that.
It's the pigment that gives plants their green color, and it's specifically designed to trap sunlight.
So chlorophyll is like a solar panel, grabbing the sun's energy. And with all these ingredients, carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight, captured by chlorophyll, what's the amazing result? What did they actually make?
The main products of photosynthesis are glucose, which is a sugar that serves as the plant's primary source of energy and building material.
The plant's food.
Exactly. And oxygen, which is released into the air as a byproduct. It's pretty amazing when you think about it. They're making their own food and giving us the air we breathe at the same time.
Talk about a win-win situation. I remember seeing a Does that sum it all up neatly?
It does indeed. The equation for photosynthesis is carbon dioxide plus water. Then you add sunlight and chlorophyll over the arrow. Glucose plus oxygen. It's a concise way to see how everything comes together.
Science with its little equations so handy. Now, you mentioned some cool facts about photosynthesis. What interesting tidbits have you got for us?
Okay, here's one to impress your friends. The actual term photosynthesis wasn't always around. It was coined by a botanist named Charles Reed Barnes in 1893.
1893. Really?
Yep. Before that, people understood that plants used sunlight to make food, but they didn't have that specific word for the process.
Wow, a relatively new word for such an old and fundamental process. What else have you got up your sleeve?
Another interesting fact is that leaves are often referred to as the food factories of plants.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
This is because the vast majority of photosynthesis takes place in the leaves, thanks to their broad surface area for catching sunlight and the high concentration of chlorophyll within their cells. It's like they're the prime real estate for solar energy capture.
Ah,
and the main chefs in the plant kingdom's kitchen.
makes perfect sense. Thinking about leaves, I recall seeing something about an experiment with a leaf that had different colored patches, a variegated leaf. What was that experiment trying to show?
Ah, yes, the variegated leaf experiment. That's a classic.
Yeah.
It's a great way to visually demonstrate that chlorophyll is essential for photosynthesis.
Right.
Variegated leaves, like those you see on some coleus or hibiscus plants, have areas that are green and areas that lack chlorophyll, appearing white or yellow.
Mm-hmm.
The experiment involves testing the leaf for the presence of starch, which, as we mentioned, is a stored form of the glucose produced during photosynthesis.
Okay, give us the quick rundown of how the experiment works.
Sure. First, the leaf is boiled in water. This kills the cells and makes them permeable.
Okay.
Then it's soaked in warm alcohol carefully, usually in a water bath, to remove the chlorophyll. Otherwise, the green color would hide the result.
Makes sense. Get rid of the green.
Exactly. After a good rinse in water, iodine solution is dropped onto the leaf. Iodine is like a starch detector. It turns a bluish-black color when starch is present.
And what's the big reveal? What happens?
The cool part is that only the areas of the leaf that were originally green, the parts containing chlorophyll, will turn bluish-black, indicating the presence of starch.
Ah,
The non-green parts won't change color because photosynthesis couldn't happen there without chlorophyll. It's a clear, visual proof of chlorophyl's vital role in making food.
that's a really neat way to see it in action. So for the most part, plants are these incredible self-feeders. But are there any exceptions to this rule? Any plant rebels that get their food in other ways?
Oh, absolutely. While autotrophic nutrition through photosynthesis is the main gig for most plants, there are some fascinating exceptions that have adopted different strategies for getting their nutrients. We call this heterotrophic nutrition,
Heterotrophic.
meaning they rely on other sources for food.
Ooh, like plant pirates or sneaky snack stealers. Tell me more.
Well, some are parasitic plants. Take Cuscuta, or dodder, also known as the amarbel. This plant actually lacks chlorophyll, so it can't photosynthesize at all.
No green bits.
No, it's often yellowish or orange. Instead, it sends out special root-like structures called haustoria that penetrate the stem or leaves of a host plant and tap directly into its food and water supply.
Whoa.
It's like a friend who always forgets their lunch and ends up eating yours every single day.
The ultimate freeloader of the plant world. Okay, what other unique eaters are out there?
Then you have the insectivorous plants, like the Venus flytrap or the pitcher plant. These guys do photosynthesize, but they often grow in soils that are poor in certain nutrients, particularly nitrogen.
Ah, so they need a supplement.
Exactly. To make up for this, they've evolved ingenious traps to capture and digest insects, providing them with the nutrients they need, especially that nitrogen boost.
So they're like tiny green hunters setting clever traps for their meals. How do the pitcher plants work, for example? You mentioned those.
Yeah, pitcher plants are really cool. Picture a leaf shaped like a pitcher or a vase, often with a little lid or hood on top.
Okay.
Inside the pitcher, there are digestive juices. The rim of the pitcher is often slippery, and some even secrete sweet nectar to lure insects in.
Sneaky.
Very sneaky. Once an insect slips and falls inside, it can't easily climb out due to downward-pointing hairs or the slippery walls. Then the plant releases enzymes that break down the insect's body, and the plant absorbs the released nutrients. It's like a plant that has its own built-in stomach for the insects it catches.
That's wild, seriously. From solar-powered chefs to energy thieves and insect-eating traps, the plant kingdom is way more diverse than I ever imagined.
Yeah.
Any other surprising feeding methods?
One more interesting group to mention is the saprotrophic organisms, which includes things like fungi, mushrooms, molds, and some bacteria. Now, fungi aren't technically plants anymore in modern classification, but this mode of nutrition is worth mentioning.
Okay, so what do saprotrophs do?
These organisms don't have chlorophyll and don't trap prey. Instead, they obtain their nutrients from dead and decaying organic matter. Think fallen leaves, dead wood, dead animals.
Ah, the decomposers.
Exactly. They secrete digestive enzymes onto the dead material, breaking it down externally, and then absorb the resulting simple nutrients. Think of them as nature's recyclers, breaking down waste and turning it back into usable food.
So they're like the cleanup crew of the ecosystem, turning yesterday's leftovers into today's nutrients. That's actually a pretty important job, isn't it?
Absolutely crucial. They play a vital role in nutrient cycling, making sure that the elements locked up in dead organisms are returned to the soil and the environment for other living things, like plants, to use again.
Right. Completes the circle.
Precisely.
Now, we've talked about happens to the soil over time? If plants are constantly taking things out, doesn't the soil eventually run out of those essential nutrients, like, get worn out?
You've hit on a really important point. Just like if you keep withdrawing money from a bank account without depositing anything, the soil can indeed become depleted of its nutrients over time,
Makes sense?
especially in places where the same crops are grown intensively year after year. Farming takes a lot out of the soil.
So, what's the solution? How do we keep the soil healthy and fertile so plants can continue to thrive? How do farmers manage this?
Farmers and gardeners use several methods to replenish these lost nutrients. One common practice is adding manure and fertilizers to the soil.
Right, we mentioned fertilizers with the MPK.
Exactly. Fertilizers contain those key elements like nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, giving plants a direct concentrated supply of what they need. Manure, which is decomposed animal waste and plant matter, also enriches the soil with a range of nutrients and, importantly, improves its structure and ability to hold water.
So it's like giving the soil a nutritious top-up and improving its texture.
You got it. Keeps it in good shape.
I also remember reading about some kind of special relationship between certain plants and bacteria, something about nitrogen. What was that all about?
Ah, yes. That's the fascinating world of symbiotic relationships, where two different organisms live closely together and both benefit. It's really cool.
Okay.
And the roots of leguminous plants, things like peas, beans, lentils, clover, there are spectral bacteria called rhizobium living inside little bumps called root nodules. These bacteria have a remarkable ability. They can take nitrogen gas directly from the atmosphere.
Which is like most of the air, right?
Yeah, about 78% of the air is nitrogen gas, but plants can't use it in that form. It's like having a pantry full of ingredients you can't open.
Huh, okay.
But these rhizobium bacteria can fix that atmospheric nitrogen, converting it into forms like ammonia or nitrates, which the plants can absorb and use.
That sounds like a pretty sweet deal for the plant.
Wow.
What do the bacteria get in return for their hard work?
It is a great partnership. The leguminous plants provide the rhizobium bacteria with a safe home within their root nodules, and also supply them with sugar, food, essentially produced during photosynthesis.
Ah, so the plant feeds the bacteria that feed the plant.
Exactly. It's a win-win situation, like a plant-bacteria buddy system that helps everyone thrive. This natural nitrogen fixation is so effective that farmers often rotate crops, planting legumes to naturally enrich the soil with nitrogen for the next crop.
Talk about a natural fertilizer factory built right into the plant's roots. And I think I also saw something about rotating the types of crops you plant. You just mentioned it.
Yes, crop rotation is another really clever agricultural technique that ties into this. It involves planting different types of crops in a field in a planned sequence over several years.
Why do that?
Well, since different plants have different nutrient needs, some use a lot of nitrogen, some use more phosphorus, and legumes add nitrogen, rotating them helps to maintain a more balanced level of nutrients in the soil overall.
Okay, that makes sense.
It can also help to break the life cycles of pests and diseases that might build up if you just grow the same crop in the same place year after year.
So it's like varying your diet to make sure you get a wide range of vitamins and minerals, but applied to the soil. Smart.
Exactly. It's all about keeping the soil ecosystem healthy and balanced in the long run.
Wow, we've covered a ton of ground in this deep dive into plant nutrition. Let's quickly summarize the key takeaways so everything really sticks.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, first off, remember that plants need essential mineral nutrients for healthy growth.
Right.
And they mainly get these through their roots from the soil, water, and air. Think of potassium, calcium, nitrogen, phosphorus, those key elements.
Got it. Nutrients from the environment.
Yeah.
And most green plants are amazing autotrophs, meaning they're self-feeders.
Yep.
They use photosynthesis, powered by sunlight and chlorophyll, to convert carbon dioxide and water into their food, glucose, releasing oxygen as a happy byproduct for us.
Exactly, the food factories. But it's also fascinating to remember that there are other ways plants get nutrition, those heterotrophs. We have parasitic plants like cuscuta that tap into other plants.
The freeloaders.
Insectivorous plants like pitcher plants that trap and digest insects for nutrients, especially nitrogen.
The hunters.
And saprotrophic organisms like fungi that break down dead organic matter. It's a diverse world out there.
Totally diverse. And finally, we learned that the nutrients in the soil, which plants use up, get replenished.
Yeah, they get replenished naturally through things like nitrogen fixation by bacteria and legumes.
The buddy system.
And also through the help of farmers and gardeners adding fertilizers and manure and using techniques like crop rotation.
Right. keeping the soil bank account topped up.
And understanding all of this, how plants get their food and the different strategies they use, really helps us appreciate the incredible processes happening all around us. From the smallest blade of grass to the tallest tree, and even in the food we eat. It's pretty fundamental.
It's like there's this whole intricate, silent world of green life with its own amazing ways of getting energy and growing. Okay, for our final thought today, something to really let sink in. Now that you know plants make their own food using sunlight, what do you think would happen if the Earth experienced a really, really long period with drastically reduced sunlight? Maybe due to a massive volcanic eruption spewing ash everywhere or something else blocking the sun. For the entire food web and affect all living things. It's a big question to ponder.
A truly thought-provoking question. It really highlights the fundamental role plants and photosynthesis play in sustaining pretty much all life on Earth as we know it. Something to definitely chew on.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of plant nutrition. Hope you learned a thing or two.
Yeah, thanks everyone. See you next time.